Welcome back, brothers, tourists, and ladies, to another episode of the Chapter House, the Old Glory Club's look into the men and the chapters that make up the Old Glory Club. Pardon the delay tonight. I was being rightfully chastised for not having done the proper shillings up until this point, so those will commence anon. Check out Axios Remote Fitness and Coaching. Get a specialized fitness program to make yourself look great and also feel better than you ever have before. Also, with the specialized program, you can do it at your own pace and not hurt yourself, which is very important. Get your nicotine fix using the affiliate link to ALP. We support big tobacco and small tobacco alike. And the newest one in our little group here is tallmenbooks.com. Our friend George Bagby with his publishing company putting out American authors, authorship, and all things American history. Joining us tonight are the Sons of Wisconsin from the great state of Wisconsin, though you may be shocked to hear that. And the representatives tonight are Matthew. How are you, Matthew?
Doing well. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for joining us. And Anodyne, something I would never wish to be called, but it's a good name.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I guess we'll kick it right off. Tell me about Wisconsin, the state of things in the great state, and why you guys decided to join our little organization here.
Yeah. Again, just thanks for having us on. As Anodyne said, it's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, as you said, surprise, surprise, we are from Wisconsin, hailing the chapter of OGC in the great state of Wisconsin. It's a lovely place, all things considered. I will go right off the bat and admit that I am a adopted son of Wisconsin. I was Army brat, so I moved around a lot, and my wife has roots here. My children are born here, and so I've settled here. The true son of Wisconsin is my vice president here, Anodyne. I very much fallen in love with the state here, especially this time of year, fall, which we'll get into discussing a little bit later this evening. And I have to say right off the bat that I have been around the nation and in Europe, and the fall foliage of Wisconsin rivals New England, and I've not been over to the Pacific Northwest, so I won't speak on that, but don't care, I'll say it anyways. It's probably not as good as Wisconsin, especially up towards the north. I'll be cocky like that, but no, it's great being here. I am the president of the Sons of Wisconsin chapter. And like I said, I've just been doing my best to make it my home. We are in the Milwaukee area generally, and it's an interesting climate here politically, but more than anything, what we love is always just the people. So I'll let Anodyne take it from there.
Sure. And just to clarify, when he said we're from the greater Milwaukee area, he means me and Matthew. But we have several members spread throughout the entire state, actually. We just had a little get together up in the northwest part of the state. And that is a really beautiful area to go leafing. But even here in southeastern Wisconsin, the foliage is radiant. So anyway, like Matthew said, we've accepted him as an adopted son. But I am a true blood son of Wisconsin. My ancestors go back to before statehood here in this state and back east even further. Why did we join OGC? For the fellowship. Matthew has quickly become one of my best friends, and just having that brotherhood and camaraderie has really been immensely valuable, and it's a wonderful thing. So
Yeah, I mean that's great to hear. One of the things I've noticed doing this is that a lot of the people who start the OGC chapters in their respective states are transplants, which makes sense. If you're new to the area, you don't already have a network that you can get plugged into. But that also seems to be the story of all generations younger than Gen X, that we tend to move around quite a bit. And, we find ourselves in places that our families just aren't from. But Anodyne, let me ask you this, because this is something that, whenever I look at a map of the United States, I wonder, how far along are you guys in the process of mounting an armed invasion of the Upper Peninsula to reclaim it?
I don't want to disclose any confidential information on that, so I'll say mum's the word for now. But that's definitely a top priority for Sons of Wisconsin.
Well, I'm glad that you have that kind of discretion. We may have some Michiganders who take issue with that idea, but you're in the Brotherhood now, so if your brothers decide that it's time, it might be time. But yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't want to cast shade on our Michigan brothers, but we've had you peers reaching out to us about membership here in the Sons of Wisconsin, so I'll just let that sit.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, unless you're willing to hop over, what is that, Route 75 bridge? I mean, are you really even a Michigander at that point? I also had another question. What's with the cheese?
What's with the cheese? Huh. You know what? No, I'll let the true son of Wisconsin answer that one.
Well, there's that whole thing about California having happy cows, and technically they are the largest producing dairy state, at least the last time I looked into this. But here in Wisconsin, we have angry cows, and they just produce a better quality of cheese. And so that's why we are the cheese state. We are the cheeseheads. We have that solid, Germanic, stubborn, just angry mentality, and it just bleeds over into the cattle. So that's really what it's about.
I mean, that's amazing. I was unaware that there were breeds of cow that were distinguished by how pissed off they are. Now, what is it about those cattle that gives you good cheese? Is it kind of like a tanginess that comes from the attitude?
Yeah, I think that sums it up nicely.
Well, perfect. I mean, I know that a lot of our listeners were wondering that too. So, if they weren't, you guys just need to get more curious about these sorts of things. I don't know what to tell you. So, you said fall in Wisconsin is like just as beautiful as in New England, and as a son of New England, someone who spends a lot of time up in the areas where anyone south of that particular town is referred to as a flatlander. I gotta say, I'm rather skeptical. What's the topography like in Wisconsin? Do you have the hills? Do you have the mountains? Do you have the splash of color across the entire horizon?
So this is me gonna show off what I've been studying about Wisconsin. So we have here what's called the driftless region. So when the glaciers came down from the north, they didn't manage to cover the southwest area of Wisconsin. And so it just really left a bunch of really, rolling beautiful hills. We did a meetup, I want to say back in June. Actually, I think
July. It was July.
Was it July? No, wasn't it Juneteenth? something like that.
Yeah, I'm glad that Wisconsin celebrates Juneteenth. It is our most important holiday besides
Yes.
MLK Day.
Well, we had our inaugural meeting on MLK Day, so
Yeah,
we really do celebrate here. Yeah.
it's a it's something of a humorous circumstance. But anyways, that driftless region is, I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. There are those hills, um, and we do have one quote unquote mountain. Admittedly, it does not rival the mountains of Appalachia or anywhere up in the Northeast and that area, but those hills, man, there's something that's really gorgeous about them. And actually, over here by us in southeastern Wisconsin, there is a beautiful Romanesque church that sits atop a hill. It's called Holy Hill. Um, and Anodyne, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's the highest point in southeastern Wisconsin.
That's correct.
Yeah, so it is, and they have a nice tall bell tower that you can climb this time of year. You go all the way up the steps, and it is a gorgeous 360 view all around with gorgeous foliage for you to really, really soak in. Um, and so from there, you go all the way up a little bit further up north, the North Woods, and again, just a lot more trees to be surrounded by, and again, just taking all that foliage. It's I don't want to say too much more. I don't want people coming over here and
Yeah, I
stealing
was going to
all
say
this.
you
I don't want
risk
to hype it up too
bringing in
much.
leafers
Yeah,
from
exactly.
the more southern states with this kind of talk. But all right, so I had a question about kind of what the confessional heritage is of Wisconsin, because if you look at a map of Wisconsin, you see a lot of French names, with interspersed with a lot of ridiculous names like Sheboygan and Oshkosh. But I also noticed like Rhinelander and other kind of German names. So I wonder, did the French leave the stain of Catholicism, or were the Germans just completely ineffectual at getting rid of it when they settled?
I think it's more a matter of a lot of German Catholics settled here too. So it's not all on the French in that regard. But of course, the oldest Catholic churches do hail from those early French pioneer days. But as far as, confessional heritage, yes, Catholicism is the largest. But, we're the home to the third largest Lutheran synod in the United States, the Wisconsin Synod. We have a large Lutheran representation here. I don't think it's the largest in the country. That might be Minnesota, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Shame on me, the Lutheran, for not knowing that. But as far as that divide, there's a pretty good split between Protestant and Catholic. But the more interesting, I think, demographic note in that regard is the Yankee and the Germanic influence of Wisconsin, which really shaped and molded our state, kind of like none other in the Union. One of our members, Saxon Nomad, wrote a really good article on our Substack about this. So if you're interested in more detail on that, I highly recommend that article.
And so people who are interested can find you by the Sons of Wisconsin on Substack?
Yeah, or you can just go to our website, wisconsinogc.org, and all our links and stuff are on there too.
We'll have to have the producer throw that in the description so that the lazy can just go click the link. So one of the things I've noticed across the OGC is that for such a Protestant nation that the United States is, we have an overrepresentation of Catholics and Catholic chapters. I know, for example, the New Ivy League is overwhelmingly Catholic. I myself am overwhelmingly Catholic. What about the Wisconsin OGC? Do you guys have a good smattering, or does it lean one way or the other?
I'm pleased to say that we have Protestant superiority in the Sons of Wisconsin, but our president here is a Catholic, so that is a stain on our majority there. But
Yeah, I don't know if you guys are going to get along with the North Carolina guys at the event, but well, it'll be fine. A little rivalry isn't gonna hurt.
No, I'm sure it won't. Yeah, like Anodyne said, it is mostly Lutherans at the moment, but we'll see. We'll see what ends up winning out in the long run. We still managed to get along, and actually, it aids to um, the dynamic that we have. Theology is always something that's very much brought up, and in good faith too. Um, it's not meant to cudgel anyone, um, but it does make for interesting conversations. And actually, one things that always manages to come up is the Nephilim in our conversations.
Okay, that's awesome. I want to know if Nephilim were discovered with their bones in Wisconsin at some point. But yeah, we joke about the confessional stuff, but everyone in the OGC realizes that internecine fighting can wait until we're in a much different world where we have the luxury of that sort of thing. So,
Right.
So the Nephilim, right? The half breeds. Tell me that there was one found in Wisconsin.
Honestly, I'm remiss in not knowing.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm sure that there are some weird, spooky things that we can talk about Wisconsin in, but you guys wanted to discuss something that you referred to as Ember Days. Please inform us. What are the Ember Days?
Yeah, so the Ember Days are part of the liturgical season in the church. Both Catholics or traditional Catholics and traditional Lutherans, I suppose I'll say that. I think that works. But again, just Christians of a more traditional flavor would abide by these days of penance called Ember Days, and they were at seasonal turning points, literally just during the change of the seasons. And they would occur on Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. So it was a day of penance, abstinence, and prayer. Unfortunately, after Vatican II, they were removed, and those days of penance fallen by the wayside. But they are very important in honing the mind to appreciate, this glorious earth that God has, gifted to us. And a big part of that is, again, acknowledging the seasons. And the one thing that I think a lot of the OGC guys are very big on is conservation. It's a proper stewardship of the earth. And so when you have a religious and liturgical time of year to keep that in mind, it helps prevent that conservation mindset from falling away. And again, just continues to always keep your mind and spirit, especially, in a state of alignment with our Lord.
So we're in the Ember Days now.
So the Ember Days would have been right around the time of the autumnal equinox. So I believe that was the 22nd of September. So we're about a month afterwards. So the 24th, 26th, 27th of September.
Okay, so we're about a month
Yeah.
out. Is this something that the chapter got in on observance? Were you guys able to use this time to get out and do that conservation, or is this something that you're planning for next year?
Well, so the whole point of Ember Days really are they're a liturgical. They're part of the liturgical calendar. So, I mean, they occur every change of the season. So from spring, summer, autumn, and so forth. So I think that's actually a pretty good idea. Now you say that. What we want to tie them into is something a little bit grander than just something of an event. But they're not necessarily days of celebration per se. It's about bringing the mind back to a more reverent state. Anodyne, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the reason we had that on the list to discuss is kind of because it kind of kicks off the autumnal season. And I just said autumnal, but I have to force myself to say fall because in doing some background reading, preparing for this discussion, I discovered that the word fall is actually the American-based word, and autumn was a later encroachment from the British after we established our country here. So
Yeah, I think you can tell that based solely on the spelling.
yeah. So we well, and not only that, but it was actually a British, and they kind of just stole it from the French too. So, and I mean, we do owe a lot in Wisconsin to the French in our founding, but nevertheless, the Germanic origins of fall are definitely superior there. So we're going to stick with that. But the reason we put Ember Days on there is simply, as Matthew was saying, because it starts off the autumnal season, and that's what we want to. That's what we really wanted to talk about, because fall is such an integral part of Wisconsin, and on a broader level for everyone, Americana, and just what it means to be an American is deeply rooted in this season. Our national mythos of the Pilgrims and that founding myth is rooted in there. Our Thanksgiving holiday, which is a sort of secular liturgical event that ties in with everything Matthew was talking about in terms of this time of year. And even on the spiritual level, there's just so much richness that is unique to Wisconsin as well. We have St. Michael's Day that we just celebrated, which has a lot of traction lately in our base circles, right? But that was closely associated with Oktoberfest, same time of year when that would come out. They'd have huge St. Michael's Day festivals, and good beer drinking and recognizing the guardian protection of the angels, and moving into All Saints Day that we're approaching, and that idea of Halloween, which is a really quintessentially American holiday too, and has a lot of strong roots here in Wisconsin as well. Which there's a lot of tie-in we could go into with Nephilim there if we really wanted to.
Oh, I mean, now that you bring it up, I discovered by using the modern day demon of LLMs that there were no fewer than 6 Nephilim uncovered in Wisconsin over the last 200 years.
Wonderful. Thank you for revealing that to us.
6, of course.
Yeah, no, a very
fitting number.
Poignant number. Yeah, a poignant number.
Yeah.
So please take us on a journey of into whatever wild lands you want to bring us.
Well, so like Anodyne said there, the St. Michael's Day, Oktoberfest, that really kicks us off into the fall season. And I mean, when you think about fall, it's a juxtaposition really between a like I was mentioning earlier, this beauty of fall foliage. I mean, like you said, leafers. People will travel to view the foliage and the leaves change. But what is that? It's death. It's the dying of these leaves. But they die so beautifully, you can appreciate that. And so, similarly, once we get eventually we'll head back to Thanksgiving. But Thanksgiving again is the feast after a harvest. A good bountiful harvest. And we brought in the liturgical and religious aspect of it because it's something that just continuously repeats itself for us as men of God, to always be prepared. So when you go into fall season, you are preparing yourself for harvest to make it through the winter, and it's either going to be a great bountiful harvest that will keep you and yours surviving through the winter, which has a very kind of obvious parallel to, well, when you die, are you going to attain glory and everlasting life, or are you going to hell? And the hell aspect is of course brought up with Halloween. So you have Halloween that, and I know a lot of people nowadays, or a lot more religious types, will kind of put their nose up at Halloween, and there's always that constant refrain that I'm sure we've all been seeing, that again, Halloween is a Catholic or a Christian holiday, and that is true. And the reminder of death, the memento mori, which one of the OGC chapters is named after. I mean, it's something that in the Christian faith is always meant to be in your mind, not to, as we'll say, in modern parlance, a black pill, but just to keep you in a mental state of preparedness for the last four things: death, judgment, heaven, hell. And so this fall liturgical season is all about that preparedness. And you asked us earlier at the start of this, what made us join OGC? Well, it's about being prepared in some regard. We want to be around people that we can raise our children in, or in a community. And if times get hard, God forbid, we have people to rely on. We are prepared. So that's really the overarching theme of all this, and we'll dig in deeper and deeper. But Anodyne, if there's anything right there you want to jump off of, or Curtis.
That what you guys are talking about, that seasonal motif, especially of fall, the transitionary period as we move into winter, where everything is cold and dead. There's in this sphere, there's in this intellectual sphere that we kind of arose out of. There's always a discussion as to whether or not the United States is currently in the fall or in early winter. And before you guys take it off in the more religious way, I was curious to get your opinions. Do you think that the American project, such as it is currently in its autumnal phase, or do you think we're already in winter?
I think we can draw a parallel from what I was going to say was just to take this on a more practical level, just to look at the tree itself. I mean, what they say anyway is that the nature of the beauty that will be in fall is based on the nutrients, the water, the sun, all the stuff that went into it throughout the whole year. And that basic level of that kind of preparedness, what went into it determines how it's going to be, is something that we can apply to our whole lives. But in specific regard to this question, Curtis, you look at America from an outside perspective, and it seems very decadent and richly ornamented, like a tree. But the leaves are falling. The leaves are falling, and there's a lot of problems. So I would tend toward we're in we're in that fall stage right now. Literally, I mean, what does fall mean? I mean, fall, right? So things can get a lot worse, and that's what winter is. I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah, and I would just say the fact that we have this breathing room at the moment to even think about preparing uh, tells us that we still have some time, um, and it's just a matter of how well do we use that time. Um, so yeah, I'm with Anodyne. I believe we're still in that fall. We've not yet hit winter. Um, so I don't want
Yeah,
to
it's
get in
time
too
for the
deep with
late
that other stuff,
harvest,
but
and hopefully it
yeah,
can carry us through.
well said. Absolutely.
So sorry, I diverted you guys away from your thoughts on this, but remembering death and keeping it in as a means of orientation towards the good, the beautiful, and the true in the liturgical calendar. Um, how does that ethos kind of guide your chapter in what you guys have been discussing and taking on?
Um, well, I think it in a way guides not just our chapter. Again, what we're kind of getting at is this is something that whether or not you are of a deeply religious um, character or not, this is kind of a reality. And so when we organize and build that fraternity by doing whatever, something as simple as just visiting each other as homes, going out for dinner, having a beer or anything. I mean, that is still part of a bit of preparation. Um, I don't want to get too much into literal preparation in like a prepping sense, but just making sure your chapter members have skills that are helpful. We have a member up in the Northwest who we brought in recently at that event that Anodyne mentioned earlier, who's he's a trapper and hunter, and skills like that are stuff we want to bring in to just to share the knowledge, um, and so that I hope that answers your question in terms of how it's guiding us as a chapter.
Yeah, I mean anything that I mean the very fact that this is a topic of discussion, that this is on the forefront of your guys' minds, and this is something that you said that when you get together you discuss. It's a very good indicator of what exactly you got, what trajectory you guys are on, and you know there are some places in the United States, like you say, Wisconsin, the Northeast, I imagine northern Michigan, where autumn is kind of this blazing, almost fire-like in the colors on the trees, and at certain points, and if you get the right vantage, it almost looks like the hills are on fire. It's the last kind of bright gasp of life before it starts to go into the winter season. So it's kind of it's very evocative for an ethos. But Anodyne, you were about to take us down a little garden path to some more liturgical aspects of this.
I certainly was, and I'm glad you brought up that aspect of fire, because if you take this to its ultimate cosmological implication of the autumn and then finally end of the entire universe, you see in Scripture the portrayal of that in terms of a consuming fire. Christ's second coming is not with a flood like the first time the earth was destroyed, but with fire. And there's a real significance to that, and I think autumn does point to that in the way you just said. And just to put another plug for our website, if you go to our website, there's a really great picture of some of those rolling hills of Wisconsin in autumn, and it looks just like you said, like a fire engulfing everything. But the liturgical year, it comes to a close in autumn with this idea of the end times and Christ's return. And the lectionary, that's the series of readings in the church year, are full of all these parables having to do with the kingdom of heaven and the end of time. Now, the overarching theme, to Matthew's point earlier, is preparedness. In our Lutheran tradition, the year ends with the parable of the 10 virgins and the importance of being a wise person who has oil in store, prepared for the bridegroom to return. Because if you're like the foolish virgins and you don't bring any spare oil, you're going to run out. And you're going to beg the people who have extra for some, they're not going to give you any. And it's going to avail you nothing. And you're going to be cast out of the wedding supper. So that idea of preparedness is really important. But you also have at the end of the year, and in the Catholic tradition, the end of the liturgical year is that parable of the sheep and the goats, where Christ separates the righteous from the unrighteous, and he sends the unrighteous into everlasting fire, right? But what is this fire that our autumnal leaves portend? It is ultimately a sacrifice, the fire of sacrifice. Why do I say that? Because, as the scripture tells us, in the end, Christ will render all things up to the Father. And that all-consuming fire in the end is the final liturgical sacrifice of the entire universe, as Christ renders up to the Father all of creation, which he's given to him. Christ has been given all dominion over everything. He is king over every single thing in this universe right now. He offers it up as a burnt sacrifice to the Father, and then makes everything new, right? And that brings us back then to that idea of the eternal day. And the liturgical year scaffolds that so well, because, what happens after this autumnal season, this liturgical season that we're in? We get back to the dawn of hope in Christmas, right? And the year begins again, and light grows, and things shine because of the glory of the incarnation, which is the fact that Christ has been born king, not just of angels, but more importantly of men, and king of the universe. And so that's really all wrapped up into this amazing season. But for us Americans, the secular holiday of Thanksgiving also scaffolds this so beautifully, because the idea of Thanksgiving coming at the end of the year, and for those of you who are liturgical, you'll know that it always comes either right before the last Sunday of the church year or right before Advent. It's always right at the end of the church year. And we have this feast of Thanksgiving. It's kind of the end of this entire autumnal season, because after Thanksgiving, everything's just brown and gross. There's not even any snow yet, usually. And it's just, there's nothing exciting until Christmas, right? Thanksgiving is like the last gasp of the year before you get to the joy of Christmas. And the idea of Thanksgiving is wrapped up into the weekly cycle of the Christian life, which is Eucharist, and that idea of Thanksgiving as the chief aspect of reality, but our lives specifically as Christians. What is the Eucharist? It's God who first made all things, gives us wheat and grapes, and then we give it back to him as bread and wine. And he does an even more exciting thing and gives that back to us as his body and blood. And then what do? We partake of it. We take it in ourselves. And all we can do at that point is just give ourselves back to him as living sacrifices. And that's a mini instantiation of what I was talking about before, of Christ rendering everything up to the Father. But we, as mini Christs, Christians, we do that every week. The entire liturgy is a mini instantiation of all of these broad cosmic principles. And the autumnal season points us to that like almost nothing else. And even if you're not a Christian, you can appreciate the beauty of this time of year and the fact that we're celebrating all these holidays and the way that we celebrate them, even just on a simple secular federal holiday level. You can see that pattern, and it can at least inspire you toward this idea of preparedness. Because ultimately, you don't want to be like one of these aged people we see today that refuse to grow up, that didn't prepare properly, that didn't have kids, that didn't build a life for themselves, that don't have fraternity, that are just whining about no kings on the street corner when they could have built a beautiful life for themselves and be crowned in this period with the beauty of the trees, right? Flaming and glorious. Instead, they're paltry and sad. And we don't want to be like that. We need to approach the end of life with grace and humility and look back with no regrets and look forward to that gross winter period, understanding that something new is coming. And so that's why we wanted to talk about fall.
Well, I mean, amen to that. I know that in the Orthodox tradition, I'm talking Eastern Orthodox, they believe that Christ literally comes as fire to burn away all of creation, and those who are wicked are tortured by this. So I think that that imagery that you mentioned, especially with the way that the trees look like they're on fire, is quite perfect. And also, I'm wondering, is the interlude between the final festivity in the liturgical calendar during fall and the celebration of Christ's coming, is that like, would that be considered a short period between celebrations?
Yeah,
In reference to
definitely.
the rest of the calendar, I mean.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's its own little mini period of fasting and preparation, right? The Advent season at the end of the church year as we cycle back into that. It's a mini Lent of sorts as you prepare for that great feast of Christmas. There's the one feast we in there that we really could, if we want to talk about preparedness, and I mean, we want to get really esoteric here with preparing for what's coming in a temporal sense, what we're dealing with now in the world. Even if you're not a Christian, you can see the writing on the wall with what's coming here in terms of Halloween. And Matthew and I talked about this before we came on. We don't want to get into any ecumenical spats here, but in the Lutheran tradition, we celebrate Halloween as Reformation. And the focus of that in our liturgical calendar is on this idea of Antichrist. And in a broader sense, what Antichrist is, well, it's just literally in the name. It's what's opposed to Christ. But it's not just opposed and like, oh, I hate Christ. It's setting itself up to be a counterfeit Christ. And that is embodied in the scriptures by King Solomon in the Old Testament. A lot of people see that number 666 in Revelation and talk about the mark of the beast and all this stuff. But that number is drawn out of the chronicles of the kings of Israel. Because as soon as the Queen of Sheba leaves King Solomon, it records that he builds this huge golden throne, and it has 6 stairs and all this other stuff. And it says the weight of his gold was 666. Solomon's gold is 666. And what is going on there? Well, we know in Revelation, looking back, that this idea of Antichrist is tied up with that number 666, and this idea of trying to instantiate the kingdom of heaven on earth, this global reign, this globalism of total control that is rooted in not the spiritual renewal that Christ brings, who says the kingdom of heaven is within you, but trying to make the kingdom of heaven without, on the external, and trying to impose its will globally and control everything from this top-down antichrist approach. And with all the things we're seeing, the development of, you could just go into several different areas, but it seems like we're heading into this idea of this globalism that's going to lead to this kind of antichrist mentality of trying to establish perfection on earth, but without the true Christ. And so that's a level that even if you're not Christian or you're not spiritual, that you can resist that idea, that globalism idea that is latent in the Antichrist imagery. And so that it's also a season of watchfulness against that, at least for us in the Lutheran tradition. And so Halloween itself, though, really scaffolds that nicely, because what is Halloween except the Antichrist's pale attempt at Christmas? My wife and I were talking about the movie The Nightmare Before Christmas, and that really emphasizes this idea of, Halloween trying to take on Christmas, but doing it without that spiritual component. And so it just becomes, you got trick-or-treating and you're going to try to get gifts, but it's on the basis of fear, and you're going to get a trick if you don't give the gift, right? The treat. You've got these paltry attempts at resurrection, but they're horribly mutilated, like the Nephilim, right? Nephilim is the result of a spirit that doesn't have a body trying to incarnate in a perverted way. But you have other monsters that try to fill the pattern too. You've got zombies, which are bodies without souls. You've got ghosts, which are souls without bodies. All these things trying to live forever, but in this perverted way, rather than through Christmas, which is the incarnation. So that's why I say Halloween is kind of this it's the Antichrist's Christmas in a way, the way it's become. But I've been talking too much. Someone else can chime in here.
Now, I'll just throw this out there just because I don't want anybody to. No, I mean I agree with what Anodyne's saying, but this isn't to make us come off as like doomsday people. We think the rapture is right around the corner, but again, these are things that if you try to avoid thinking about, like the secular world would have you, you are left, like we've been talking about, unprepared. So again, not to pivot too hard, but I did actually want to get to this one last bit. You guys were mentioning the the fire, the way the leaves on the trees look like fire in this last gasp. Now, I'm not a Spangler scholar. I do have a nice leather bound copy of Yaki's Imperium that my wife did herself. That's a whole little short story, but I mean that last gasp in Yaki's understanding is that Imperium. I mean, it's that last push for a civilization to exert itself, and I mean it's one might call it decadent, but it's also still a time of opportunity. Things aren't completely falling apart. It's still, in some sense, part of the decline, but it is still part of, again, just an opportunity. It's a time to be opportunistic and take advantage of the things not totally crumbling all around you. And so, again, to tie this all back to the overarching theme is, I mean, what are you doing out there, Anon, listening to this right now? How are you getting prepared? Do you know your neighbors? Do you have guys you trust? Is what we've been talking about this whole time. Is what if you're listening to these OGC shows, it's to give you a kick in the rear and say get up. So that's really the big message that I hope a lot of people take away from this whole discussion is the time is now. And if you keep sitting around, you're going to be, that guy going about begging, or, and like we mentioned earlier, you're going to be that unprepared individual who's just left there to be sacrificed, or just left by the wayside. So get up, go out, join your local OGC, and get involved however you can. Don't wait.
I second everything that you just said, and I got to tell you guys, this time absolutely flew by. I've got a whole host of notes here with questions that I wanted to ask and threads I wanted to pluck at, but I imagine we'd be here until the sun rose, both on the East Coast and in Wisconsin if we did that. So I guess I'll ask one question. Is The Nightmare Before Christmas a secretly based Christian film?
I have never seen that movie.
I'm gonna say it's one to watch with the wife for sure. It's cutesy. You understand why an entire generation of alt/goth girls got one-shotted by it. So hopefully it leads them to Christ eventually. But I'm going to demand of the producer at this point the link to the super chats so I can read them. But before I get that link, you guys talked about how the time is now, and just bringing the themes together with what Anodyne had been saying. The utopian kind of aspect of the Antichrist and this kind of physical, it's physical instantiation in gold. That gold is the thing that is kind of focused on. When you, Matthew, were talking about preparedness, you're not talking about hoarding material goods, gold, food, ammunition. You're talking about building the social capital, which I think is the proper way to look at it. When we did get that. We did get that link. So Christopher Burks, for $2, he gives us a solid salute. Thank you, sir. You are our strongest soldier tonight. Let no man contest this position. I think that we have reached our end here, boys. You gave us a lot to chew on, and I'm really looking forward to being able to sit down with you guys in person at some point, either because I have an opportunity to be out your way, or that we see each other at some sort of event. Before we start wrapping things up, though, if you had anything else to say to our brothers, besides that rousing call to action that Matthew gave us, what would it be, Anodyne?
I would underline what he said and take that to the next level too, in terms of what I was talking about, which can seem like, oh my goodness, Antichrist, it's, what can we do in the face of such evil, is to point out that, like the season of fall, these things are cyclical, and even the spirit and pattern of Antichrist is cyclical. So no man knows the day or the hour of the ultimate end. And Earth could endure for another 10,000 years or more. What's incumbent upon us is to be the best men that we can be, and to build these relationships so that we can make sure that the pattern doesn't come to an end in our time, and that we stem the tide of Antichrist and let that be on some other generation.
Yeah, I think there's a much larger discussion to get into on the fractal nature of reality. But I appreciate your guys' contribution. Matthew, if you have any other closing words?
No, all I'll really say is, I mean, all things have their season, and in their times, all things pass under heaven.
Well, there you have
God
it,
bless,
listeners.
bless you all.
The Sons of Wisconsin, serious men for serious times, well worth your at least looking into. Thank you for joining us. I did forget one of our sponsors, Fox & Sons Coffee. If you have the caffeine bug, like I do, go over there, spend lots of money, and use code OGC at checkout for a nice little discount. And just as a reminder to all of our listeners that the East Coast Forum is going on imminently. And alas, for those of you who waited to buy tickets, you missed the boat. They are all sold out. So this isn't really an advertisement so much as a rubbing it in your face that you were too slow. So next time, get on that. For the Chapter House, I am Not Me, Not You. Up next week is the Iron Loam Gang from the great state of Oklahoma, where the wind blows swiftly down the plain. So thanks again for the Sons of Wisconsin, Matthew, Anodyne. It was great to have you guys on, and we look forward